Can sports cards actually go down another 84% from where they are today? Well, I'm actually going to share real data that might help paint that picture for you. Let's go. All right, today's video, I've got a bit of a doozy for everybody. I'm sure that there's going to be people that are going to be like, dude, he's crazy. Could the sports card market still go down an additional 84%? Could it? That's the million-dollar question. In today's video, I want to talk about actual data and not just some wild opinions. I've been seeing a lot of videos recently where people will share an opinion that they believe that the market's still going to decrease. I actually seen even a title of a video just the other day talking about a potential bull run coming. Now, I didn't watch the video, so take that. That might have just been a clickbait type title. I'm sure that most of you guys will, or a lot of you guys will have an idea of who published that video. I will go watch that video, so he may not genuinely mean that there's a specific bull market coming. But the title of the video would insinuate that he believes that there is a bull market coming. I want to share actual data. I'm going to create a baseline use case, share hundreds and hundreds of cards worth of data, or at least roll it up and share it with you guys, and then essentially turn it over to you guys. And it's at that point really up to you to make the determinations that you want to make on the cards that you want to buy in the future. But let's just go ahead and jump into this. How did I come up with an 84% decrease that could come into the marketplace? Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying it's going to come into the marketplace. I'm saying that there is a perspective out there where the market is still 84% overvalued for some very key, critical, very stable market or stable cards. Let me share a handful of those cards with you guys. Today I'm tracking sales data, and that's eBay sales data, that's some of the major auction houses sales data on 220 total cards. Now, not all 220 cards are on the screen here, but feel free to pause and take a look at the types of cards that I'm tracking. Many of you guys will be like, oh, some of this is more vintage stuff, and I'll explain why here in a moment. But I am tracking baseball, football, and basketball. I'm not tracking modern day players specifically because there's instability in those marketplaces. And I'm not tracking cards from the 50s and pre-war era, mainly because there's condition sensitivity and those markets are slightly unstable just based upon limited production runs or condition related issues. When we look at the types of cards that I have on the list here, generally speaking, the 1960s and 70s, football, baseball, and basketball, yes, some of those sets can be condition sensitive, but there's thousands of cards that are graded, PSA 5, 6, 7s, 8s. But let me get into exactly how I pull some of the data and what these data points look like. So feel free to pause, take a look at some of these cards. Not everything is represented, but here is a sampling of the 220 cards that I'm pulling sales data on. Why these players? Why these cards? Again, market stability. There's a solid sales history. Most of these players are Hall of Famers. These are very popular cards within the hobby. And those are key because when we talk about active players, based upon their performance, the markets can go up and down fairly erratically, right? Somebody gets hot, all of a sudden their cards start to spike. Additionally, you could take somebody like Pujols last year. When he retired his announcement, we started noticing the prices of his cards going up. Then he had that crazy ending and his card price was all over the place, right? As we look at his market today, it's starting to kind of stabilize again, and I don't expect that we'll see any massive spikes in his market until the official Hall of Fame announcement is put in place. Another all-time great that we could look at is on the football space. Look at what's taking place to the Tom Brady rookie card market right now. It's coming down. Those cards were overinflated. He's no longer, relevant or as relevant as he was once before. We're seeing that market come down. We all know it's a foregone conclusion unless it comes out that he was on some sort of steroids, which none of us would believe. at this point, but unless there was some performance enhancing issues that got in the way of him becoming a Hall of Famer, again, it's a foregone conclusion that a Tom Brady will be a Hall of Famer. So the next time we see his market spike will be roughly that Hall of Fame announcement. That said, I don't want to pull sales data on extremely rare cards, condition sensitive type cards. I want to pull sales data for cards that have thousands of graded copies per assigned grade. What assigned grades do I look at? Well, I'm looking at the three most populous. So in some cases, that could be PSA 9s, 8s, and 7s for, say, the 1986 Fleer sets from a basketball perspective. Then you could look at the Mantles, and some of those might be collector grade at PSA 6, 5, and 4. And generally, I want to go to the largest volume based upon the assigned grades, because that's where the greatest marketplace is. If there's more cards to sell, there's more cards graded at those specific grades, then we're going to be able to capture more sales data. I do avoid pulling PSA 10 for any card. I don't have PSA 10 data, and that's mainly because the PSA 10 can have these pretty significant spikes depending upon pop reports, how many are available, how rare that PSA 10 is. So there can be these sometimes artificial markets that are created out of a PSA 10. So I don't have sales data for PSA 10. So it's all PSA 9 and below. I don't have anything for authentic cards, PSA 1s or 2s. There might be some PSA 2s actually, excuse me. But PSA 2 to PSA 9 are kind of generally the sales data that I want to pull. The other thing I would make sure that you guys are aware, I'm only pulling PSA data. Unfortunately, SGC data is just not as readily available. The marketplace of SGC, CSGA, Beckett, some of those other secondary grading companies. We all know PSA dominates this marketplace, but we can find regularity with the PSA brand and the PSA sales points. So that's why PSA really becomes how I determine what a baseline of the marketplace is. Raw cards, I don't actually pull the data for raw cards for this example, and that's because we all understand there could be gem mint raw cards out there of a 1969 Mickey Mantle that somebody just refuses to have graded. And at some point, that card could sell at an extreme premium if the buyer believes that it's potentially going to grade up. So raw cards, there's just too much variance in the data. We want consistency when we're talking about trending and baselines and coming up with forecastable type data. All right, so establishing a baseline. Using the sales data over the 220 cards times 3, that takes us to 660 cards. Because again, I'm taking sales data for 3 versions of grades. So a PSA 8, PSA 9, PSA 7 in some scenarios, whatever the most graded card is for that specific sports card. I'm taking 3 grades worth of sales data, taking me up over 660 cards worth of data. Now, I'm now taking that and I'm assigning that in a group. And I looked at sales data in 2017, 18, and 19. And essentially, from 16 to 17, from 17 to 18, from 18 to 19, that 660 card group rose 9.5% year over year. So that becomes my baseline. Now, is this perfect science? No, it's not. Is this perfect data analysis? No, it's not. It is a fairly substantial amount of cards that I'm pulling into the data set. You don't have to agree with the data set. That's not necessarily what I'm asking you to do in this video. I want to be able to, though, paint a very predictable picture of what these cards, this large group of 660 cards, is doing on a year-over-year basis. So 9.5% annual year-over-year increase for those 660 cards. So I can then predict what those cards should have done from 2019 to today, through today, without the pandemic spike. But let's go ahead and take a look at some examples here. 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck rookie card, PSA 9. I wanted to share with you guys this card because it's a very popular card. It's a card we're all very familiar with, and there's tons and tons of sales data for this card. I've got the PSA 9 specifically represented here. And in 2017, for the entire year of 2017, all the cards sold that I have the data on sold for an average of $58.24. In 2018, I would have predicted, based upon that 9.5% increase, that the market should have risen up to $63. In 2019, the market should have risen up to $69. Fast forward to today, that card should have just been cracking that $100 price point based upon a 9.5% year-over-year increase. Now, let's be real with one another. You're never going to have a card that truly 100% of the time hits every one of these markers. It's going to dip below some of these. It's going to rise above. You might have 2 or 3 years where it's above the trend line. You may have years where it's kind of just bouncing above and below this trend line. We're looking at 660 cards. So this is the average. That 9.5% is the average across those 660 cards. When we look at the orange numbers here on the screen, you're looking at the card was actually selling for less than what I would have predicted it should have been selling for in 2018. It was selling for about $58.75. And in 2019, it increased to an average price of about $80.04, which was about $10 above the predicted baseline. So let's take a look at the greater actuals versus trend. The actuals, we all know it took place in 2019 and 2020. We had the big pandemic spike, and that big pandemic spike actually drove this card to where in 2021, the average price that this card sold for was $277.78. In 2022, it's come down to about $211. And in 2023, year to date, we're sitting just shy of $200 at $199.50. Now that's still double for where it should be right now. So it's currently 50% higher. It's double than what it should have been based upon this 9.5% year over year evaluation I'm doing. Now I would ask you, do you believe that this card is currently overvalued at the $200 price point? Well, we're going to talk about some sales volumes here in just a moment, and maybe that'll help drive home some of this point. But I wanted to at least paint the picture and share with you a single card example, because I really want to take you guys to what the entire data set of the 660 cards look like. That entire group, when we look at the trend and the percentage above or below that trend, so this is already baked in that 9.5%. Where are we at based upon that 9.5% trend? Well, the 660 cards were right at the trend line in 2017, as we would expect. They were 1% below the 9.5 in 2018 as an entire group. In 2019, they were 2% higher as an entire group. In 2020, as we kind of get into the heart of the pandemic and the huge spikes that we started seeing, it was 59% higher than the trend. In 2021, we peaked out. Again, the trend, every year, this trend is accounting for that 9.5% increase. But in 2021, we were 183% above the trend. We dropped down to about 100% in 2022. Year to date, we're currently sitting at 84%. This is where I come up with that number of, are we still 84% higher than where we should be today? And this, in combination with what I want to talk about next, which is sales, or the volume of sales that we're seeing, these two things will help, hopefully, you understand whether you want to be buying at these types of prices. But as we sit here today, based upon a 9.5% year-over-year increase, cards, these 660 cards, essentially in 660 different grades, are selling for 84% above where they were trended to be in the year 2023. Makes you wonder, do we still have room to come down, or are we about to go on another bull run? I don't see the bull run coming. I'm going to share some additional data why I don't see the bull run coming. And again, I'm not saying that that YouTuber said that there's a bull run coming. I didn't actually watch the video. I'll watch it later today. But when I seen that, I just started shaking my head when I seen the title of his video. All right, let's talk about volume. Prices today remain high. Volume is down. From 2017 to 2018, volume across these 660 cards was down 28%. 2019, 44% up. 2020, an additional 12% up. 2021, an additional 1% up. That was at the absolute highs. So we were sitting essentially 60-ish plus percent higher in 2021 than as far as the volume of sales versus 2018. Of course, we all have experienced the crash. Generally, if you're watching my video, you've experienced the crash. We've come down 49% in 2022, and year to date, we're down another 37% across these 660 cards. Now, I know not everybody's going to be great with percents. Let's actually look at a very specific example. Go back to that Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card, PSA 9. The PSA Pop report states that there's 29,503 of these in existence. In 2017, 572 cards were sold that I have data on, and the average price of those 572 cards was $58.24. That aligns with the trend. We had a slight decrease in 2018 for this specific card, down to 482. The average price sold was below the trend. 2019, 577 cards, average price of $80 sold. We're about $10, $11 above the trend. 2020, we peak out. 1,120 of these cards sold. I've got sales data on 1,100 transactions. The average price of the 1,100 transactions was $167, well above the trend line. 991 sold in 2021. $277 was the average price. But look at 2022. 272 cards were sold. So do we have cautious buyers? Or do we have sellers that are unwilling to take a loss because they're now into those cards too much? It's honestly a mixture of the two. I think we all could predict it's a mixture of the two. But the price went from $277 for the entire year of 2021, looking at it as an average, down to $211.67. But there was only 272 transactions that I can find in eBay data and other major auction houses online. Now, the average price is still about $100 over the trend line. And we look at 2023. Right now, year to date, we're about halfway through the year. I've got 100 and just shy of 200 transactions captured in my data set. Currently, we're just under $200 as an average price, which is $100 above the trend line. But we're seeing this pretty significant decrease in the volume of cards sold. And that's why prices are more gradually coming down instead of the severe drops that we were seeing from 2021 to 2022. 700 more cards sold in 2021, as they should have. If you were a seller, you wanted to be selling in 2021, generally speaking. You wanted to catch that wave, and I don't blame anybody for trying to catch that wave and selling as for the absolute peak. All of a sudden, the market shifts, and people are not buying this card at the same rate that they were buying before. So we know volume is down. We know the prices still are about 84% higher based upon my analysis. Now you can say, well, John, you didn't account for this in your analysis, or you're not accounting for that in your analysis, and that's cool. I'm a vintage collector, generally speaking. I'm a Hall of Fame collector. I'm targeting cards that I'm interested in. So you could say, well, this is more of not an entire sports card analysis. It's more of a vintage card analysis, even though there's cards that are in the junk wax era in the 1990s. I think I may even have a couple of cards in my data set that are pushing the year 2000. But generally speaking, these are the most stable cards that this hobby has, in my personal opinion. And when we think about other markets like the stock market, when we want to understand if the stock market's healthy, we're looking at the FANG stocks. If you're not familiar with the FANG stocks are, it's the biggest companies in the world. It's the Microsofts and the Apples and the Facebook Metas, the original FANG stocks. We're not looking at some penny stock that's highly speculative, and we're not basing our analysis off of that penny stock. So no offense to Ellie De La Cruz, he's got a wonderful marketplace right now, but I don't base how the health of the market is based upon Ellie De La Cruz. Because in 4 months from now, God forbid, Ellie De La Cruz might not even be in the majors. I don't think that's the case. I think he's a heck of a baseball player, but I'm not going to base my data on Ellie De La Cruz. I'm also not basing my data on a T206, Honus Wagner, or Ty Cobb, or some oddball type card. I want to be able to look at the most common cards to understand a baseline. You may not you may disagree with my baseline. This is nothing more than a point of view. But right now, based upon the data that I'm sharing with you guys, we're about 85-ish% above where we should be. And that's accounting for a 9.5% year-over-year increase since 2017 through today. We're still overpriced by 85%. And the volume of cards sold based upon online marketplaces is a fraction of what we were seeing in 2019, 20, and 21. And we're still roughly half, or we're trending to be half of what we were seeing sold in 2017, 2018, 2019. With that data, what do you believe? Is the marketplace healthy? Are we about to go on a bull run? I don't think so. Just my perspective. I may just be rambling and making this all up. You guys may have huge disagreements with the way that I came up with the numbers, but I wanted to actually show data because, no disrespect to other folks that may have done videos with data, I haven't seen too many videos actually sharing a perspective backed up by some data that I can at least fully understand how they got there. So that's what I've got for you guys today. I hope you guys appreciate the video. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. comc video, we're about the end of the month, so I'm going to be putting out a comc video. Plus today I'm expecting a decent package coming from Golden Auctions, so I'll be doing another mail day video probably in the next day or two. So I've got 2 or 3 videos coming out between now and the end of the month. I hope you guys will check those out. Certainly let me know what you guys think. I'm going to wrap this one up here, guys. Chat with you later.